Hey there everybody, welcome to Out of the Pulpit. My name is Jonathan. I am so glad that you are here. As always, if you do like what you see here, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, turn on that notification bell so that you can stay up to date with all things Out of the Pulpit. And if you haven't yet already, check out our awesome Instagram account. It's just Out of the Pulpit on Instagram. You'll find me right away. And it's just one additional way that you get to stay up to date with all of my content. With all that being said, this week you might want to do the opposite of all that. I might lose subscribers over this. I might lose friends over this. I might lose family over this. Because this week what we're going to be talking about is probably the most controversial thing that you can talk about, especially in the eyes of Christian ministry or from the pulpit or outside of the pulpit. And that is, we are going to be talking about Christian politics. More specifically, we're going to be talking about whether or not Jesus was a politician. And if I have any viewers left after this video, if I have any subscribers left after this video, I might go ahead and make this a mini-series about Christian politics, because I think it's one of the most completely misunderstood topics that there is in the Christian world. With all that being said, I hope that we can be friends after this conversation. But I just wanted to say that my job here is not to convince you of anything. I don't think I'm going to. I'm not going to even attempt to. That's not what this conversation is about. This is just about one person, one minister's idea of Christian politics is about, based off of the evidence that I have seen. I've said in pulpit and out of pulpit many times, if you know me personally, that my job is not to make sure that you are thinking the way that I think. My job is to make sure that you are thinking at all. I just want you to have an opinion. I want you to have a voice. I want you to have a thought process and the ability and willingness to go out there, find information for yourself, make a decision for yourself. But I'm not here to try to get you to think any certain way. I'm just here to give my perspective. So what's that perspective? That perspective that I'm going to give is that, are you ready? I'll just go ahead and say it, and then we'll work backwards from there. Jesus, the person, the man, God incarnate, was not a politician, kind of. Jesus was not a politician, but Jesus was political. Now that statement, and the statement I'm about to make, is something that has defined my own ministry for a long time now, in that the church, Christians, however and whoever you want to include in this, should not be playing politics, but we should be engaging in politics. We should be political, but not playing the game of politics. And I think you know exactly what I mean by that. But when it comes to Jesus himself, not a politician, but Jesus was political. And there's evidence for that all over the gospel. It's literally everywhere. Jesus' teachings and who Jesus taught to, who Jesus engaged, coincided with the political climate of the time. Really, the only way to fully understand this is to understand what the political climate was like, what the political establishment was like during first century Roman rule in Judea, in Galilee. What did the politics of the day look like? Who were the politicians of the day? And then we can see where Jesus was political. So Rome, the Empire of Rome, previously was a republic, but by the time Jesus was around, it was more closely and definitely an oligarchy. You could probably say maybe like an absolute monarchy at best. Previously, when Rome was a republic, there was voting, there was national voting. Caesar Augustus had taken that away by his time, making it an oligarchy. There was voting, and there was some semblance of a republic in lower level government, in local government. Of course, this oligarchy was ruled by Caesar Augustus at this time, but then you get into other political players that correlated directly with Jesus from Jesus' very birth, with King Herod, who, as soon as finding out that Jesus was born, sent out to kill, to literally kill Jesus, and in doing so, killing many children. And at that time, whether or not Jesus wanted to or not, was thrust directly into the world of politics. It was King Herod, a political leader, a governor, literally trying to kill Jesus from his very birth because of the threat that Jesus posed to his political power. Then you have Pontius Pilate, which you all might or may not know, was the governor of Judea, living in Jerusalem where Jesus was crucified, was the ruler, was the governor at that time, who ultimately would wash his hands clean of Jesus because he didn't want any part of it. And who took Jesus to Pontius Pilate? It was the religious elites, those Pharisees that we hear about, the Sadducees that we hear about. The religious elites brought Jesus to Pontius Pilate after taking Jesus through their courts. What am I talking about? Maybe you remember the Sanhedrin, which is where Judas, selling out Jesus. After that, the guardsmen took Jesus away, and he appeared before the Sanhedrin, which was a Jewish court. It was a Jewish form of government. You see, the reality is, even though Rome was in charge, they allowed at the local level, especially to stop uprising and revolts, they allowed the Jews to mostly govern themselves. They were still very much so oppressing and holding the Jewish people down, but they did allow at maybe we can call the city level for the Jewish religious elites to govern themselves, creating a Sanhedrin, creating literally the Talmud, the book of oral law. They had their own laws. They had their own court system, their own way of doing politics. And because their laws did not permit for them to see Jesus dead, they weren't allowed to literally execute Jesus. They then had to bring Jesus to Pontius Pilate. They wanted Jesus dead for political reasons because he threatened their political power. And what does all that mean? Well, if Rome allowed the Jews to rule over themselves in a way with the Sanhedrin, with the book of laws, that would make them, the religious elites, political leaders. That would make them politicians. So if you're doing the math with me, if these Pharisees, if these Sadducees, if these rabbis and high teachers, if they are politicians, what does that mean every time that Jesus engaged with them? It means that he was engaging with politics. And the reality of the situation is that every time that Jesus confronted Sadducees and the Pharisees, those religious elites that we love to talk about, every time he did that, he was challenging the political establishment for the time. He was challenging their laws. He was challenging the way that they took care of people and when they took care of people or chose not to. He was challenging the political establishment at Bethesda. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every single time, and we see it over and over again, Jesus engaged with the religious elites. He was engaging with political leaders, thus engaging in politics. So was Jesus a politician himself? No, I don't think you would call Jesus a politician. He'd probably be closer identified with today's language as a social justice advocate, the way that he went to the leper, the way that he healed the sick, even though the government, the establishment kept those people sick. He would probably be considered a social justice advocate or a community organizer. We cannot escape the reality that the reasons that Jesus was killed was entirely political. It was entirely about the political power of the time. It was entirely about the political establishments that be in first century Rome, in Judea, in the Sanhedrin, the way that Jesus threatened their power with this new way of living, talking about this new kingdom, talking about heaven, talking about God. I mean, for goodness sakes, the Beatitudes, the Sermon on the Mount or the Plain, depending on what gospel you're reading, right? The greatest sermon that was ever told was, yes, a theological statement about how we live here and now, how we treat people, and in doing so, making a political statement that threatened how those people had been treated up until this point, how the establishment helped or hurt these people up until this point. Jesus was confronting that directly every day of his life. Jesus was confronting that directly with every conversation with the Sadducee, with the Pharisee, with a rabbi, with a high priest, with the religious elites, we cannot truly escape the reality that Jesus was engaged with politics. So again, Jesus, not a politician, but a social justice advocate, absolutely. A community organizer, absolutely. Was he political? 100%. Did he engage with politics? Did Jesus confront the political establishment of the time? Yes. So Jesus, not a politician, but he was political.